Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at the first 3 years of Fleer Ultra football cards. Now, a lot of times you're going to hear me talk about 1990 because in cards, that was kind of the shot heard around the world. 88 and 89 had kind of set the foundation for the 90s, but 1990 was the year where everybody suddenly learned we got to grow up, and we got to grow up now because there were 3 brands, kind of 4 brands, that had already done that, who had set a standard that everybody else had to match. Those were 1990-91 Skybox, 90 Action Packed, to a certain extent 1990 Leaf, and most definitely and most importantly 1990 Pro Set. Basically, these card brands had established such a level of expectation on the market, either because they were great cards or because they were showing the potential that cards would have, that everybody had to catch up. And if you look at 1991, everybody did. That was the year that virtually everybody made a premium card, and all card designs started to improve at a very rapid pace. Now, of all the cards that made this leap, the company that had the most work to do was really Fleer, because even Topps had a somewhat decent Topps baseball set. But in terms of Fleer, across all 3 sports, their cards really tanked. And it was weird because in the 1980s, they made some pretty good cards, but in 1990, they really hit rock bottom. They were completely lost in terms of what to do. And in order to make a premium card, you have to first understand how to make a card in the first place, and they really didn't have any idea. Fortunately, when they did make their premium brand, when they did make 91 Ultra, they turned to a very reliable source. They basically just looked at 1990 Pro Set and made a version of that. Or you could say they looked at 1990 Pro Set Super Bowl cards and made a version of that. They made kind of a hybrid of the two. But 91 Ultra was basically a stripped down, simplified version of the card fronts of Pro Set. Unfortunately for Fleer, they didn't really understand card design to the extent that Pro Set did. So where Pro Set understood how mats work, which is that a mat is supposed to kind of disappear but accentuate some quality inside of the image that you're looking at, they tried to get their border to kind of disappear with this silver foil treatment that they went with, and as a result of that, the pictures kind of disappeared. So when you look at a 1990 Pro Set card and you look at a 91 Ultra card, you can see the similarities. They have half-bleed cards, they have a thin border on the top, big border on the bottom, the name down at the bottom, the logo up at the top. All of that stuff reads very well. But even though a lot of these Ultra shots, the shots themselves, even though they really pop, they get lost because the border is just anemic. That was the first flaw that Ultra had, of a couple of flaws that they were going to be having to deal with as they finally learned how to make a really high quality card. But it wasn't too bad of a start. The big advantage that they had with these cards was the card stock. Now, up until this time, there were 4 different card stocks. There was the classic top stock, which was a big fluffy card stock of just pressed cardboard, but not well pressed. So it was pretty soft stuff. And then there was the Fleer and Don Russ version, which was more heavily pressed, but still kind of fluffy. And then there was the Score Pro Set version, and it was a true pressed cardboard with not a heavy gloss finish, but it gave you the ability to get really high quality front and back images. And then there was the high end, the really high gloss, really firm card stock that you would see in cards like Upper Deck. And here they upgraded from the Don Russ Fleer style to the Pro Set Score style. So another way in which these cards were like Pro Set was that the cards actually felt the same way. They were basically built the same way. So it was another step forward, but Ultra still had a ways to go. So for Fleer's first entry, they made some good looking cards, but not great looking cards. And they made better quality cards, but still not great quality cards. So if you're going to do premium, you got to get it right. And they were already off to a so-so start. Now on the card back, they did a much better job. Here they had some color fading, which is something they were doing in their regular Fleer cards. They had a green to white fade on the bottom, and they had either a blue to white fade on the top of AFC cards, or they had an orange to yellow fade for NFC cards. So they actually had 2 different kinds of card backs, and the conferences were what determined which one that they went with. And the first part of the set was all AFC cards from the Buffalo Bills to the Seattle Seahawks. And then it was NFC cards from the Atlanta Falcons through the Skins. So the set was built to match up with this. But the card backs, they had some cool qualities to them where they had kind of a shield in the middle with a portrait, and they had two pictures of the players, and they had almost no information on the back. But that's because these are premium cards. You don't get a premium card to learn about the player. You want to do that, you get a base card. A premium card is intended to be a really cool collectible, something that stands out as its own existence, its own statement of the player and of itself. And that's what these cards did. They were fantastic in terms of just looking really cool on the back. Card front, not so much, but on the card back, they really did look cool. The card set also had some rookies after all of these players, and the rookies were kind of the same, except it was the players in their old college uniforms, but they didn't have the rights to show any of the logos. So it made the rookies look even cheaper than they already did in their college uniforms. And they did have a little logo up there for rookies, but other than that, they're kind of a disappointment in the set. On the back, the one advantage they have was they had an actual write-up about each player. So that was a plus that they added to it. The card set also had checklists in a unique quality that they were doing with Ultra. In 92 and 95, the Ultra checklists looked just like checklists, but in all the other years, they themed the checklists so that they had players in the front and they had players on the card backs. Either same or different players on the card front to the back. And in the case of 1991, they had the same player on both card fronts and a different player on the card backs, but it was the same two players. Randall Cunningham on the front, Emmitt Smith on the back. Both checklists are the same way. So that adds a certain level of collectability to these cards that's really cool about the cards. They had an update set because that's the kind of thing that Fleer did. They did these updates with rookies and with traded cards. And here the big difference was that the rookies were all in their NFL uniforms, and they also had the traded players in their new uniforms. And that was pretty much the set. And then at the end they had a checklist with Nick Bell on the front and Jim McMahon on the back. But other than that, it really wasn't anything really all that special. The update set was sold as a complete set. It was not sold in packs, so they didn't do anything special. It was just that. But in the packs for the regular set, they had hobby and they had retail packs. They had them either in black or they had them in green. And they had one insert set for either of these packs. So the black packs had one insert set and the green packs had a completely different insert set. 10 cards in each case. One of the sets was the Ultra Performances set. And this is basically the exact same card front as the regular set. They changed the logo to have the Performances emblem on it. But the main thing they did was they kind of ghosted the background around the player. So the player stood out now because everything else was kind of more whitish. But because of the border not working with the player, they didn't stand out. They didn't jump out the way that they should have, which is disappointing. The Performances logo actually does kind of work with it, and it makes the cards look a little bit better. But it was disappointing to see that their basic card design just once again it was a little disappointing. On the card backs, they have a big write-up with a silver border around the outside, and that is basically the card. Fortunately, the other insert set, the All-Stars insert set, that one they hit. They really got that one right. It's basically the card back design. These are not the same pictures as were on the players' regular cards, but it's the same design with the shield in the middle with the portrait and two small shots on either side. And instead of doing the double color fade, they just do one big color fade of gold to white. That is it. That's all that they do. And then just a few pieces of text. But with these cards, you don't want any more. Yes, the card design, that big gold field is by far the strength of the card. That's what you're looking at, but that's what you want with the cards. It makes the cards look really cool. And it follows in the All-Pro model of the regular Fleer cards. It stands alongside those as being kind of that card design that really pops and looks really good. This one far more so. So this really does look like a premium insert. And at this point in 1991, this was the premium insert set. I can't think of any insert set that looked as good as this. It was an eye-opener at the time. It was almost shockingly impressive at the time, and it still looks really good. I love these cards. I don't like the Performances, but I love the All-Star cards. For 1992, they were going to have to really up the game because 91, they hadn't figured out what they were going to do. So in 1992, they started off with going to a full-blown premium card stock. This is a thicker card, a firmer card with a high gloss finish. That's already a plus. Down at the bottom, they have kind of a slanted field of marble, green marble, kind of like a lawn, and they have an angled gold foil strip that creates the barrier between the theme on the bottom and the picture. And then they have two horizontal strips of color, the two different colors of the team, one with the player name, the other with the team and the position. And these elements all create a really good dynamic at the bottom that make a very rich and lively card. And with high gloss and a 3/4 bleed this time, the whole card design is really, really impressive and very elegant. You can tell these guys are finally starting to figure it out. They also have a logo up on the top left corner with a football behind a gold foil ultra word. And with the gold foil on the top and the bottom, it brings the whole card together. The design is great, and all of the colors are really rich. The problem is the pictures are terrible. These pictures really are horrible. They didn't take the time to find pictures that could stand out. And a lot of sets did this in the 90s, unfortunately. It really is a shame that a lot of companies did this, because if you're going to make a card, at least have the picture of the player stand out. That's the whole point of the card. And with cards like this, they forgot to do that. And so is another learning point that they had to figure out how to correct down the road. The card set does not have an update set, so they actually made it bigger. So there are even more of these cards in this set. And you really wish that they'd hit it across the entire run of it, because there are a lot of cards and it's a lot of disappointment overall on an individual basis. The card backs, on the other hand, are really great. I'll start off with a problem. The problem is that they have a big block on the side, which is the green marble, and it's just a harsh cut from there to the main theme. But that's really the only problem. Otherwise, these card backs are fantastic. They're really fantastic. It's a football field theme with a color fade between the two colors of the team. And you see a lot of jerseys and helmets with the two pictures of the player. And so all of those colors come together to make a really rich and vibrant and exciting card back. And it's probably the best card back up until that time. It's a really fantastic card back. I really do love the card back. I wish that they had made a complete card, because it's really close on every level. The rookies, like the previous year, they're in their college uniforms, so it's kind of the same card, but not as cool. And on the back, they again have a write-up. So again, these backs really don't do anything, except with the rookies, they do have a write-up, but otherwise, whatever. The checklists, like I said, are not impressive, but that's okay. They're nice looking checklists. They're just not collectible because they don't have the players. Now, 1992 is the first of the 2 years where Fleer basically made a statement to the entire world about what kind of a card company they were going to be, and they were going to be the insert company. For 92, they didn't get into the bulk. They would get into that in 93, but in 92, they got into quality. They really, really, really focused on quality. And these inserts were fantastic. The first insert was their award winners, and it's basically the same card design, except they replaced the green marble with black marble. That's kind of the main theme of the front. They look good, but again, the pictures aren't very good. On the card back, however, they have a very bold theme of marble treatment around it, and these cards at the time, they were shockingly impressive. These were the cards that you looked at and your jaw just hit the ground and said, oh, I didn't know cards could be like this. And everybody had to grow up when they saw this level of design work in these cards. It was really, really exquisite looking at these cards. And I think that they hold up pretty much just as well, except I do remember just how shocking they were at the time. So I know that's worn off a little bit, but overall, these are really, really impressive card backs. The other two inserts were both performance highlights, and performance highlights were 10 cards about each of two players. They either had Chris Miller, who is the official spokesman of Ultra, or they had Reggie White. The cards are a big box with a marble treatment around the outside, so the whole border is one big marble treatment, and it's either a red marble for Chris Miller or a silver marble for Reggie White. And they have some gold on the front, and that's nice. On the back, they have the whole back is marble with text over it, but the marble is kind of ghosted. It's lightened up so that it doesn't compete with the text. Like I said, it's 10 cards for each player, and then in each card is numbered of 10, 1 of 10, 2 of 10, etc. And then they had a send away. In the send away, you could get 2 additional cards, either of Chris Miller or Reggie White. Basically, there were 10 card sets that turned into 12 card sets. But where the main set cards had of 10, the other two cards said either 11 or 12. There was no of designator, so they were just kind of tacked on at the end. And the Reggie White cards actually have another color back on both the front, where it's kind of green, and on the back, where it's actually red on the back, like the Chris Miller cards, for some strange reason. Now, the cards also came with autographs, and the autograph cards that Fleer started doing, they were not the first ones to come up with this. It's actually ProLine that started doing this, and ProLine also showed everybody how to approach it, because you've got to validate or authenticate these autograph cards, and the way they did it was by embossing. So Fleer did the same thing. Every time they have these official autographs, there is an embossed seal on the card that says Fleer. So that's how you can tell the authentic cards. And it's all 10 of the cards in the packs that come with the autographs. From what I understand, they didn't do 11 or 12. They didn't do the sendaways, only the main 10. But there are 10 Chris Miller cards, and there are 10 Reggie White cards. Now, for 1993, they really needed to clean things up. They needed to finally get this to work. They needed to be on point. And for their 93 set, they really did pretty much pull that off. They started off by shrinking the marble at the bottom. They also changed it from green to black, which made it a lot more formal, and it had a better grounding quality to the artistic design of the cards. They had the two strips like they'd had before, but this time they actually turned those into marble, and they created a 3D effect on it, so it made it look a lot more impressive. They also changed the logo up on the top corner, and the logo went from just having a little football hidden in the back to actually having a flaming football plunging down out of the ultra foil text, and it made it really dynamic and exciting, and it helped to enunciate the card. So all that was great, but what was really great was they were finally choosing good pictures. These were pictures that were providing us with basically a portrait of each player on each card, and it stood out. The colors were still very vibrant. They were really making the colors jump out. But the pictures were finally starting to catch up. And even in cases where the players kind of washed out in the card, they still stand out in a much, much better way than previously. So they got all the pieces on the card front to work. The rookies were all done in their regular uniforms now, and they were seated into the sets. So prior to this, the rookies were all stuffed in the back. Now they were regular player cards, even though they still had a rookie ribbon in gold foil. But otherwise, they fit in well with the set. So the whole set felt so much better. And they continued with the checklists from the idea from 91, but unlike the 91 year, this had the same player on the front and on the back on each card, but they changed it from card to card. So they had 5 different checklists, and they had 5 different players. The players are William Perry, David Meggett, Randall Cunningham, Ricky Proehl, and Chip Laumiller. And these cards, it's really fun to have the collectability of these cards, especially in this case where each checklist is a different player, so you get to collect them in kind of a different format than you had done previously. And I like that addition that they added to how these checklists work. Now, the card backs for these 93 cards are technically improvements on 92, but they don't pop in the same way. They're a lot busier. They work really well. They're well designed across the entire card back, but they have an interesting quirk on them where they have a background of a football game, and it's just a stock shot, so it's the same shot every single time. They change the end zone to be the color of the team that you're looking at. So all the end zones look the same for one team, and then they change for the next team. But the players, they didn't change that. So every single card has all the same players, which is, interestingly, the Denver Broncos defense and the Oakland Raiders offense. Every card's got that. But it's just a stock shot, so it doesn't really matter. But the fact that they changed the end zone is a really neat trick that they played on this. Now, 93 was the year that Fleer began to really expand out the number of inserts that they did. This was the year where they doubled down on they were going to be the insert company. That was going to be their thing. Everybody had their thing. This was Fleer's thing. And so we got a lot of insert sets for 1993. The first insert set is the all-rookie team, and this is just a collection of 10 rookies with a very, 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 very vibrant background. It's an overly vibrant background, which works. These cards jump out. They look really cool. Just don't spend time looking at the background because the yellow and the orange doesn't really look very good. It's kind of a cartoony back, but it works great as long as you're not focusing on it. It's one of those cards where when you're flipping through, you hit those and you go, wow, these are cool, these are impressive. So I love these cards because I know better than to try to love them too much. And if you look at the back, it really starts to look kind of cartoony, but great cards otherwise. They also had 2 card sets that were, you would think that they would be hobby and retail or something like that. They're not, but it's league leaders and award winners, and they're the same card design. It's just league leaders has a silver foil and award winners has gold foil. Again, 10 cards. They're not parallels, not the same players, not the same theme in any way. The card effect is kind of like light coming toward you in kind of a smoky environment, that kind of an approach. They look kind of cool. And they look kind of boring at the same time, but they're not parallels. They also made a performance highlight set, and this was just one player, just Michael Irvin. It's kind of a blue tint background with a little strip of black marble at the bottom. That's pretty much all that they did for these cards. 10 cards, again a send away, again the autographs. They also did an insert called Ultra Stars set, and this particular set is easily the card set of these inserts. It's really, really, really impressive. It's a high gloss like all the other cards. It's got a black and white treatment or a grayscale treatment of the whole background behind a color photo of the player. And this had been done a couple of times before, but none of them really stood out. This did. This showed that if you do it in a high gloss card, this trick looks fantastic. It really, really does. And on top of that, they draped an American flag behind the player with space in between. So it's a stylized American flag, not a full American flag. It looks fantastic. These cards are amazing on the front. On the back, don't worry about it. It has a card back. It needs to. But the fact that they were putting all their investment on the front, it paid off in these cards. Unfortunately, the last card set, the Touchdown Kings, that one it's okay, but after the Ultra Stars, it's a pretty mediocre card design. Basically, it's a color image of the player, and the background basically has a football field and some X's and O's draped across it, and it's kind of there. And the back of the card is kind of there too. Back of the card's a little better than the Ultra Stars, but not much. But that was basically it. But that is what they did over these first 3 years. It was quite an evolution where they started off with just some ideas of what to do, but didn't really know how to make it all work. And then they got to kind of refining it to the point where they knew what they were doing and they had earned their place. And so I enjoy watching the evolution of Ultra, of Fleer, and of early 90s card development in this. Unfortunately, it takes a long time to talk about this, so I'm out of time. I'm not going to bore you with getting into 94, which is going to take a while. So I'll look at 94 and 95 later on in another video. And it's a fun exploration in its own right. It's got some pretty crazy stuff that it does, but I'm going to stick with just this. And I'm curious to hear from you guys what you think about these cards holding up over the years, because I think that a lot of these cards do hold up today, that a lot of these cards are great cards today. But then again, I remember how amazing these cards were back in 1992 and 1993. So the rose-colored glasses that I'm wearing may be tinting my vision a little bit more than I realized. So I really do want to hear from you guys what you think about this. And look for other videos that I've done. Definitely look for the upcoming videos I'm going to be doing on Ultra as I make my way through all of these different years. And I hope that you'll subscribe. Hope you'll hit the like button. And thank you very much for watching.